Hello and welcome. My name is Andrew Ross. I'm the president of the Clark Builders Group of Companies. After you watch the following video and learn more about our health, safety, and environment management system, including our safety policies and procedures, I hope you'll have a clear understanding of what it means to be a part of the Clark Builders team. You'll learn about the importance we place on the well-being of you and those we all work with through our Building Life program, where we commit to living injury-free every day. On any given project, timelines, deliverables, tasks, and the number of people working on site can vary. Regardless of where you are working, practicing safety means caring for your fellow coworkers and yourself to make sure that everyone goes home safely at the end of each day. We achieve this by aligning every one of our actions with our core values. We have a can-do attitude. When it comes to our own wellness and safety, we take ownership of daily safety practices and always make safe decisions, even when no one is watching. We respect others. By recognizing that working safely benefits everyone around us, we demonstrate respect by actively caring about our coworkers, our partners, and ourselves. We succeed as a team. By working together and ensuring our actions are thoughtful and safe, we can build with purpose and create exceptional experiences for our clients, partners, and our community. We lead with courage. We're empowered to ask questions today and every day on any procedure or aspect of a job we are unsure of. We always bring forward any suggestions or ideas we have to continually improve safety and wellness in our work environment. And finally, we deliver results. Living injury-free every day is the most important thing we do, no matter how small the job, how big the work site, and no matter what role we play on the team. We define success by living injury-free. That's our commitment to each other. Thank you for your time today, and once again, welcome to our team.
This safety orientation provides an overview of the Clark Builders Health, Safety, and Environment Management System. As a new employee on a project or facility, you're a vital part of our continued growth, and that success begins and ends with your safety. It is up to each and every one of us to establish and maintain a safe, healthy, injury, and incident-free work environment. Guiding policies. Code of Ethics, Health and Safety Policy, Environment Policy, Workplace Respect Policy, Alcohol and Drug Policy, Fatigue Policy, Progressive Discipline Policy. At the Clark Builders Group of Companies, we are intentional about building trusting and enduring relationships that give us opportunities to do the right thing for our clients, customers, industry partners, and coworkers. This isn't only a statement, it is directly related to our core purpose of building exceptional experiences and our values. The Code of Ethics and Business Conduct is intended to help ensure that the actions of all of us reflect well on ourselves, our colleagues, and our communities. In support of this commitment, each employee, officer, and director within the Clark Builders Group of Companies and each agent, consultant, and contract worker legally engaged within the CBGOC commits to abide by this code. Clark Builders is committed to providing a safe and healthy environment for all workers, contractors, visitors, and the public. Everyone is accountable and responsible to each other to work in a safe manner and refuse work that appears unsafe. We strive to continuously improve by challenging, testing, evaluating, and seeking input from anyone involved on a project. Environment Policy. We uphold the highest standards for environmental stewardship and sustainability. This means Clark Builders meets regulatory standards and minimizes the impact on the environment and climate on all work sites, in all projects, and across all of our operations. We believe in protecting tomorrow, today. The company is committed to providing an environment free of discrimination, bullying, violence, unprofessional conduct, and harassment. This policy applies to all salary, hourly, and contract personnel employed by one of the Clark Builders Group of Companies. It forms part of and is associated with all terms and conditions outlined in the Code of Ethics and Business Conduct. The company strictly prohibits all forms of discrimination, bullying, harassment, violence, and unprofessional conduct in the workplace environment. the company also prohibits retaliation against any individual who reports or who participates in the investigation of a report of discrimination, bullying, harassment, violence, or unprofessional conduct. Conduct in violation of this policy is subject to appropriate disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment. Employees with questions about the workplace respect policy can speak with their manager or human resources. Alcohol and drug policy. Clark Builders has adopted the best practices for alcohol and drug guidelines as set out by the Construction Owners Association of Alberta. We have zero tolerance for alcohol and drugs in the workplace and on any work site. Our alcohol and drug policy applies to all employees, subcontractors and their employees, visitors, suppliers, and vendors. Our policy helps us ensure we provide a safe workplace for all employees by reducing the risks associated with the use of alcohol and drugs. Fatigue policy. What is fatigue? Fatigue is extreme tiredness, typically resulting from mental or physical exertion or illness which can impair safe work performance. Fatigue affects a person's health, increases the chance of workplace injuries occurring, and reduces performance and productivity in the workplace. While not all people respond to fatigue in the same way, fatigue can cause reduced concentration, impaired coordination, compromised judgment, and slower reaction times, ultimately increasing the risk of incidents and injuries. Clark Builders is committed to providing safe work systems regarding shift work, extended hours, exposure to hot or cold environments, as well as noise and chemicals, and where workplace conditions can impact worker health. For more detailed information, refer to the Fatigue Recognition and Management Practice. Progressive Discipline Policy. Clark Builders employs a progressive discipline policy to maintain consistency and standards for job performance. By using coaching and collaboration between management and an employee, we can ensure the employee understands the standards for their job. It ensures we work together to address any issues and create an action plan to allow an employee to return to acceptable performance. When discipline is required, it is based on the degree of hazard or potential consequences of an employee's actions or performance. Disciplinary actions could range from a verbal warning to a written warning to suspension or immediate dismissal. For their first offense, an employee is given a documented verbal warning. On their second offense, an employee is given a written warning. On their third offense, an employee will receive written notice of the disciplinary action that will be taken. Disciplinary action may include suspension without pay or immediate dismissal. As an employee or a contractor working for us, you are responsible to visit the company website and review the complete policy details, as this is a summary of our company policies. Accountabilities and responsibilities. Prime contractor, employer, supervisor, employee, OH&S worker rights, subcontractor. There are many different players on a Clark Builders worksite. Let's take a look at who's involved and what they are responsible for. Prime contractor. Prime contractors have overall responsibility for the health and safety of everyone on a worksite. However, even with this high-level oversight, employers still retain responsibility for the health and safety of their own employees. Employer. Employers are responsible for ensuring the health and safety of all workers and those impacted by the work being carried out. It's the employer's responsibility to meet all of the legislative and regulatory requirements of the province or territory where the work site is located. Every supervisor or manager is considered to be the employer under legislative requirements. Supervisor. A supervisor will ensure that the supervisor is competent to supervise every worker under their supervision. Take all precautions necessary to protect the health and safety of every worker under the supervisor's supervision. Ensure that a worker under the supervisor's supervision works in the manner and in accordance with the procedures and measures required by legislative requirements. Any employee can have supervision responsibilities. They don't have to have supervisor in their job title. Employee. Every employee must take reasonable care and cooperate with their employer in efforts to protect the health and safety of oneself, other workers, and anyone present on a worksite. It's your responsibility to never put yourself or others at risk. As an employee, you are expected to report for work fit and ready for duty, free of impairment by drugs, alcohol, fatigue, or any other influence, and be knowledgeable of and adhere to our safety policies and requirements. We also expect employees to play an active role in safety meetings and toolbox talks, and to immediately report any injuries, illnesses, unsafe acts or conditions, incidents, or near misses. OH&S Worker Rights. Each province and territory has occupational health and safety legislation that spells out 3 fundamental rights for every worker on any job site. You have the right to know and be informed of known and foreseeable hazards in the workplace. You have the right to participate in health and safety activities, identifying and correcting job-related health and safety concerns. You have the right and the duty to refuse work that appears dangerous to you or your co-workers. If you refuse to carry out work, operate a tool, appliance, or equipment, or if you see an unsafe work practice or process, notify your supervisor as soon as you reasonably can. It is the responsibility of supervisors to investigate and take action to eliminate any imminent danger and ensure no individual carries out the work nor uses the tool, appliance, or equipment until the danger is reviewed and eliminated. Subcontractor. Subcontractors on a project and worksite also have very specific responsibilities. All subcontractors must be knowledgeable and comply with all applicable regulatory and legislative requirements, as well as the policies and procedures of Clark Builders and the client or owner of the worksite. Subcontractors are expected to take immediate action to eliminate or control any hazards. Prior to leaving a project or worksite, subcontractors must immediately notify your Clark Builders representative of any incidents, property damage, near misses, spills, and any person's refusal to work. Workplace expectations. While every player on a worksite has unique responsibilities, there are basic expectations and rules that apply to everyone. All workers are expected to keep their training certification current and must only perform job tasks and operate equipment for which they are trained, deemed competent, and authorized to use. We expect everyone in the workplace to take every precaution to ensure the health and safety of themselves, co-workers, anyone on a worksite, and the general public. Everyone must report for work fit for duty, free of impairment by drugs, alcohol, fatigue, or other influences. Smoking is only permitted in designated areas, and possession or use of alcohol or drugs will lead to removal from a work site. There will be no unauthorized removal or disengagement of safeguards, locks, tags, or protective devices. Equipment and vehicles will be operated only by those with the appropriate authority, qualifications, and training. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, must be worn where and when required. All work management tools like safe work practices, job hazard assessments, and pre-task hazard assessments must be in place before starting any job task. All injuries, incidents, and near misses must be immediately reported to a supervisor. It is also highly recommended that workers inform their supervisor of any medical conditions or prescription medications that may impact one's ability and performance on the job. If you witness any inappropriate behaviors on a work site, like violence or fighting, sleeping, criminal or illegal activity, harassment or loitering, report it immediately. And finally, cell phone use on a work site is prohibited unless you have permission or if you are using your phone in one of the designated safe locations when you are not active in your job. Headphones, earbuds, and music devices are prohibited on the work site. Near misses and incidents. A near miss is an incident which, under slightly different circumstances, had reasonable potential to result in harm, damage, or negative impact. This could include personal harm, permanent total disability or loss of life of an employee or employees, property damage, extensive damage to structures, equipment or materials, or negative environmental impact that could be reported to the authorities. An incident is an undesired event that did result in harm to people and/or the environment, damage to assets, or a loss in production or downtime on a work site. Incidents can include damage to vehicles, property, equipment and tools, fires, and environmental spills or releases. Near misses and incidents serve as a warning that a condition or practice is unsafe and needs to be altered before it develops into a serious situation. You will find our near-miss booklets throughout a worksite. If you experience or witness a near-miss, complete a near-miss report and submit it directly or anonymously to a supervisor or safety designate. Your company evaluates and investigates all near misses proportionate to the degree of the severity. By using the SMART method for the prevention of recurrence as well as elimination of severity, we say that actions to prevent recurrence must be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-sensitive. SMART. Injury and illness reporting. When you or a coworker is injured, there are a number of requirements under workers' compensation and the Occupational Health and Safety Act to minimize claim costs and, most importantly, support your recovery and safe return to work. If you have an injury or illness, report the condition to your supervisor immediately, including any medical attention you may seek outside of work hours. This includes reporting small injuries that require minimal first aid or no treatment, suspected injuries, and occupational illnesses like strains, pain, or inhalation. We must make certain that reports applicable to injuries and/or illnesses are sent to occupational injury insurers within 72 hours of being made aware of the injury. If you are injured outside of work, please contact your supervisor and confidentially share the type of injury, the medical attention that was required, and your contact information. Manual lifting. Strains and sprains are the most common workplace injuries. There are preventative steps that can be taken to mitigate these types of injuries. Before you manually lift, lower, push, pull, carry, handle, or transport a load, you must perform a hazard assessment that considers the weight, size, and shape of the load, the number of times the load will be moved and how it will be moved, and if the weight exceeds or is believed could exceed 50 pounds, mechanical means should be applied. Items exceeding 50 pounds should never be manually lifted, no matter how many people are lifting the item. Mechanical means should be used for any item 50 pounds or more. Stretching. Performing simple stretching exercises can prevent muscle strain and injury and improve your range of motion. It is important to stretch at the beginning of a shift, periodically throughout the day, and before you perform any physically demanding task. When stretching, do not bounce and don't force a stretch. Use gentle, controlled movements and perform each stretch slowly and smoothly. Hold each stretch for 10 seconds, building up to 20 seconds. Try to breathe naturally and don't hold your breath. Make sure you don't overstretch. If something hurts, stop the stretch immediately and consider an alternate stretch for that part of your body. When stretching, keep your head upright, your feet shoulder-width apart, and knees slightly bent. When you work in the same posture, performing the same repetitive task throughout the day or day after day, your muscles can become unbalanced, which can lead to strains and sprains. Take periodic micro breaks from repetitive job tasks to rest your muscles and posture. If you are suffering or recovering from an injury, consult your physician before beginning any form of stretching. Hazard recognition and control. Construction hazard assessment. Job hazard assessment. Pre-task hazard assessment. A hazard is a behavior or condition with the potential to cause harm to a person, equipment, or the environment. A control is what we do to eliminate or prevent a hazard from causing or contributing to an incident. To reach our goal of zero incidents and injuries, we must ensure hazards are properly identified and controlled. We follow 6 crucial steps to identify, control, and eliminate hazards before performing any task on a project. C. This means actively looking for and being fully aware of hazards before and during a task. Recognize. Identify if there is a behavior or condition that could become a hazard. Acknowledge. Accept the real dangers that can affect you or someone else and decide what must be done to eliminate that hazard. Evaluate. Assess the risk and ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen, or what is the potential severity of the hazard? When you multiply the severity by the frequency, you get a true sense of the risk inherent in the hazard. Plan. Determine in advance the controls required to keep the hazard from causing an incident. Act. Implement a plan to eliminate the hazard and potential incidents. Failing to complete any one of the 6 steps will result in the hazard posing a risk. Keep in mind that the way tasks were carried out in the past are very different from how they are performed today. Technology, tools, procedures, regulations, and best practices have evolved and advanced, making the workplace safer for everyone. And while production and performance are always important, we expect you to focus on health and safety first. It's a condition of employment. Prior to mobilization onto the project or facility, a Construction Hazard Assessment (CHA) is conducted to identify risks associated with the scope of work. High or medium risk tasks and/or activities identified in the CHA will assist personnel in the development of a Job Hazard Assessment (JHA). During the life cycle of a project, the CHA and JHA will be reviewed and reassessed quarterly, or at a minimum when the seasons change or if there are any significant changes to the scope of work. Criteria for the development of a CHA includes, but is not limited to, the following: complexity of project, example, new project or renovation; engineered plans and drawings for project; building permit or permits; construction processes and equipment and materials to be used; existing overhead or underground utilities, gas, electricity, storm sewer, etc. Expertise of available contractor services. Weather conditions, both normal and extreme, such as temperature extremes, high winds, tornadoes, earthquakes, flooding. Environmental concerns. Health and hygiene concerns. Nearest hospital or clinic location, emergency response, ambulance, fire, and police. Any client-specific HSE requirements. Job Hazard Assessment, JHA. Jobs that are deemed to be high risk or require a permit to work undergo a written Job Hazard Assessment, or JHA. With a Job Hazard Assessment, management and supervisors work together to assess and prioritize risk and identify and implement controls by using the 6 steps in hazard recognition and control. A Job Hazard Assessment must be reviewed by the crew and their supervisor prior to performing the task. Each assessment is reviewed and signed off by each member of the crew and the supervisor to ensure everyone has acknowledged they have read the assessment and understand the hazards. Pre-Task Hazard Assessment, PTA. The Pre-Task Hazard Assessment, or PTA, is an awareness program that helps supervisors and workers safely complete their daily activities and responsibilities by using hazard identification and control. A PTA encourages all crew members to proactively participate in the discussion of a hazard and the controls that must be put in place to reduce or eliminate that hazard, or zero the risk. A PTA must be completed at the beginning of a new job or a new shift and prior to starting work at the task location, including when you return from a scheduled break. A PTA must also be completed when new workers come to the job site or when another person's activity could pose a risk to you. Finally, when the work or job site changes, plans are modified, or equipment or tools are changed or substituted, a PTA must be performed. When the weather changes dramatically, a PTA should also be completed. A PTA must be completed in the field, at the task, and for every task. Every member of the crew must participate in the PTA and sign off their understanding of the hazards and controls that must be implemented. The supervisor of the crew or a designated and competent crew member is the one responsible to verify the PTA is completed. Each and every day, crew supervisors and project management randomly audit the assessment forms that have been completed. Audits provide the opportunity to give feedback to the crew on the completeness and quality of their PTA and serve as documentation of suggestions for improvement. The information generated by the PTA audit ensures we continually improve workplace safety and the PTA program. Change management. When you are contemplating a change, consider the following. Identify the task to be completed along with the tools, equipment, and safe work procedures and practices required to complete the task by implementing a hazard assessment. Implement the plan or hazard assessment. Review the hazard assessment to verify that the hazards and controls are such that you can continue the task safely. If the hazard assessment shows that improvements are needed, make any required modifications and review the task again. The change can be implemented when the hazard assessment is adequate and reasonable. Be sure to review the task change periodically, looking for accuracy and making further adjustments if necessary. Managing change is about recognizing when a change has occurred. It means stopping or pausing and taking time to reevaluate the risks. Remember, before you can recognize change, you must know and understand the original plan. Inspections. 3 types of inspections can happen on any work site. The first is an informal inspection, which is an undocumented and unscheduled spontaneous visual examination of the workplace that happens each day and on an ongoing basis. Informal inspections can include daily site inspections, inspections of tools before they are used, and PPE inspections. After all informal inspections, feedback is provided on the steps that need to be taken to address any issues. The second type of inspection is a formal inspection, where a scheduled and documented examination of the workplace is completed with management, supervisors, and workers. Formal inspections can occur weekly, monthly, or quarterly. Finally, there is a regulatory inspection, which happens when a government representative comes to the workplace at any time for a documented visual examination. Safety meetings. Clark Builders holds a variety of forums and meetings to communicate with everyone about the safety plan for a particular project or work site. Project startup meetings are held with contractors prior to mobilization on a project or at a facility. The Clark Builders project management team meets with contractors to share project-specific expectations in health, safety and the environment, quality, and operations. Joint Worksite HSE Committee will be established in accordance to regulatory and jurisdictional requirements for the applicable province or territory. There are also weekly safety meetings that provide timely information on health, safety, and the environmental aspects of a project. Weekly HSE meetings are conducted by supervisors and/or lead hands and provide an important communication link between all members of a crew. Weekly safety meetings cover only health, safety, and environment matters. Minutes of these meetings are kept and forwarded to the project superintendent, where progress is reviewed and action items are assigned so they can be immediately addressed. Daily toolbox meetings are a staple at Clark Builders. Each member of a crew is required to participate in daily toolbox meetings, which happen at the start of shift and provide the opportunity to review tasks for the day, safety and project issues, trends, and/or any other site concerns. Finally, we also hold weekly contractor coordination meetings with all contractors to review health, safety and the environment concerns, quality control, progress, and scheduling. These meetings are a chance to communicate any concerns, trends, coordinate tasks, and share information. Emergency response plans. There is always a project or facility-specific emergency response plan in place for each and every project, job site, and facility. these plans provide a timely and systematic way of responding to emergencies. Some of the scenarios these plans address are personal injury and illness, environmental spill or release, property damage, fire or explosion, significant weather-related events, contagious disease, working at heights or high-angle rescue, confined space entries. Whether you work on a project or work site, or if you work in an office environment, the emergency response plan specific to your environment and surroundings will be tested at least once a year. Fire extinguishers. Fire extinguishers are personal protective equipment. While we don't expect you to become a firefighter, it is important to know how and when to use a fire extinguisher. Although they are not hard to use, if used improperly, extinguishers can cause a fire to spread or increase in size and significance. If you have to use an extinguisher, pull the pin and point the extinguisher at the base of the fire. Engage the handles and move the extinguisher from side to side across the fire's base. Never turn your back on a fire. Wherever there is potential for a fire hazard, there should be a fire extinguisher in place. All workers that may require a fire extinguisher are required to inspect it at the beginning of each shift to ensure it is ready to use. Fire prevention is the best way to reduce the risk of fire outbreak. Scaffolding. All scaffolding must be inspected and signed off by a designated and qualified scaffolding inspector. Before climbing onto and using any scaffolding, look for a tag that will tell you if it's safe to use. If you see a green tag on the scaffolding, that means the scaffolding is okay for use by all trades. If you see a yellow tag, the scaffolding can be used as long as you observe the list of hazards. If there is a red tag on the scaffolding, it must not be used. Similarly, if you don't see any tag on the scaffolding, it should also not be used. All scaffolding must be erected, modified, maintained, and inspected in accordance with the specifications of the manufacturer, the legislative requirements of the province or territory you are working in, and Canadian Safety Standards, or CSA. Clark Builders supervisors and contractors are responsible for ensuring workers are comfortable and competent in erecting, modifying, and/or inspecting scaffolding. Ladders. All ladders must be inspected prior to being used. If a ladder is found to be unsafe, it must be tagged, removed from service immediately, and repaired or destroyed. Do not carry tools in your hands while ascending or descending a ladder. You should maintain 3-point contact with body centered between rails when ascending or descending a ladder. No work can be performed from the top 2 ladder rungs of any step ladder. For additional information, refer to the Clark Builders ladder poster available at your project or facility. How a ladder is used on a work site must follow the manufacturer's recommendations and specifications for use. Housekeeping. Safety starts with you. Keeping your work area tidy and clean leads to a safe work environment for all. Plan ahead of time how you will keep your material storage area orderly and clean each day. Your work area should be checked daily for cleanliness and to keep everything in order. Assign 1 or more persons in your crew to be responsible for this daily housekeeping. Make your plan for housekeeping and worksite cleanup a part of your everyday routine. Clean as you complete tasks without interfering with your regular workflow. Staying ahead of the curve can help keep housekeeping to a minimum and your work area safer. Personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, must be worn at all times on a work site or in a facility. The minimum PPE required, unless otherwise noted, will be your hard hat, ANSI or CSA approved, CSA approved safety glasses and CSA approved high visibility safety clothing, and CSA Class 1 approved footwear with a minimum 6-inch ankle height. Gloves are a mandatory requirement for all tasks. Prior to starting a project, verify the provincial and territory legislative requirements for PPE. Ensure you wear your PPE correctly based on the level of training and instruction you receive. Finally, inspect your PPE each day prior to putting it on. If you find your PPE is in a condition where it is unsuitable or unsafe to use, do not wear it and secure replacement equipment. Hand tools. It is important to choose the proper tool for the task at hand. Inspect any tools prior to use and never modify a tool or disable its safety devices like guards or brakes. If you find any damaged or defective tools, tag them and remove them from service so no one else can use them. All electrical tools must be grounded and double insulated. Fall protection, open holes, leading edge. Permanent structures with no existing fall hazards do not require fall protection. However, permanent or temporary structures with fall hazards require the use of fall protection. Protect any open holes or openings with hard barricading, including top and bottom rails as well as toe boards. Barricades must be properly stored. When working at heights over 3 meters or 10 feet, you must wear a harness and take fall protection training as defined by Clark Builders. It is also imperative you verify and follow the legislative requirements for fall protection for the province or territory you are working in. Cranes and rigging. Any person operating a crane and/or hoisting equipment must be a certified journeyman equipment operator or an apprentice equipment operator and provide a recent inspection report and proof of current certification. All cranes must have a crane log, which is a record of any repairs, modifications, and inspections complete with their date, time, and details on the work performed. Logbooks must be up to date and are kept in the cab of the crane at all times. The operator of a crane or hoisting equipment is responsible for monitoring the conditions that may affect the safety of any lift. If the operator has any doubt about the safety of a lift, the operator must cease operations until the conditions are safe. Elevated work platforms. Elevated and mobile work platforms must have an operator trained in compliance with Clark Builders standards for their safe use, operation, and inspection. Mobile work platforms must be inspected and certified in writing every 12 months by the manufacturer or a professional engineer. The machine must always be operated to the manufacturer's specifications and requirements. It is important to maintain a safe distance above and below the elevated work platform. Do not place ladders, step-ups, or any other means of gaining elevation on the platform to increase your vertical reach. This includes not standing on mid or top rails. When you exit the basket or elevated work platform, follow the procedure approved by the manufacturer. Barricades and flagging. At any worksite, you will encounter different barricades and flagging. When you see red flagging, it means danger, do not enter. Never cross a danger or radiation flagged area unless you have permission and are directly involved in and authorized to be in the work area. If you see yellow flagging, it means caution. Cross a yellow caution flag only after reading the details on the tag and determining there is no hazard. Every flagging tag, regardless of its color, must have the following information written on it: the purpose of the flagging tag, the supervisor responsible for placing the tag, including their contact information, and the date the flag was placed and the trade responsible. Weather. Workers could be at risk of exposure to hot, cold temperatures or inclement weather any time during their work activities. Exposure to hot or cold conditions may occur several times throughout the year depending on your work location. During seasonal work, workers may be exposed to a variety of hot or cold conditions which could affect personal health and safety as well as productivity. Workers and supervisors will be required to assess these conditions prior to starting their task and make certain controls are in place to prevent exposure or risk to personal health and safety. Refer to hot and cold weather safety bulletins available through your supervisor. In a thunder and lightning storm, after you see a flash of lightning, count the number of seconds before you hear thunder. Take the number of seconds and divide by 5. The answer tells you how many miles away the storm is. If the number of miles is less than or equal to 6 miles, take shelter immediately. If you've not seen lightning in more than 30 minutes, only then can you resume work. Code of practice. There are many areas and tasks on a work site that have specific codes of practice that must be followed. There are codes of practice for tasks in the following areas: confined space, silica, ground disturbance, respiratory protection, asbestos, lead abatement, lockout, tagout, energy isolation, mold. If you are required to complete a task in any of these areas, talk with your supervisor to arrange the training you need prior to starting the task. WHMIS. WHMIS stands for the Workplace Hazardous Materials Information System. It is a comprehensive system for providing health and safety information on hazardous products used, handled, or stored in Canadian workplaces. WHMIS is aligned with the Worldwide Hazard Communication System known as GHS, or the Globally Harmonized System for the Classification and Labeling of Chemicals. Any employee who has the potential to come into contact with hazardous products and the supervisors of those employees must receive WHMIS training. Working alone. It is important to monitor and reduce the risks that can come with working alone on a work site. If you are working alone, a formalized method of checking in on you at regular intervals must be in place, along with an action plan for any identified risks if you cannot be reached. To monitor employees working alone, your company employs periodic checks on the person working alone by sending another person to check in or by calling the individual by phone or through a central monitoring system. Electric alarms, panic buttons, or personal pendant alarms can also be used.
At Clark Builders Group of Companies, we strive to always do the right thing, particularly when it comes to the safety of our team members, our partners, and our community at large. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'm excited to have you join me and the rest of our team in making a commitment to working safely.